Hello everyone, it's 10 o'clock and time to start today's webinar. My name is Deb Oliver and I am the Product Manager for BA Professional Development with IIBA. I have the pleasure of being your host for today's webinar, answering your questions on IIBA Strategic Alliances. On behalf of IIBA, I really do want to thank you for joining us today. And the purpose of today's session is to answer any of the questions that you have on the organization's current activity to develop collaborative relationships across the BA community. To start, I'd like to introduce our panel for today's discussion. First on the list is Alain Arsenault. He is the Director of Corporate and Business Development, and as part of his mandate, he and his team are part of the development and management of corporate programs. So this includes not only corporate membership programs, but also establishing strategic alliance associations and business analysis ecosystem. In addition, he and his team are responsible for the development of new business engagement and programs. Welcome, Alain. We also have Kathleen Hutton with us. Kathleen is the Director of Chapters and Member Services. Kathleen leads the chapter and membership team, and she and her team continue to serve the needs of the BA community by providing added value programs and critical support resources. Kathleen brings her excitement and passion to today's discussion as part of her and her team's dedication to the advancement of our chapters, members, and the volunteer community at large. Welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you, Deb.
We also have Jazz Poole. Jazz is not only the product manager for BA Practice Development, but he is also the acting director for Education Standards and Research. Jazz, as interim director, leads his team in creating and improving knowledge and value-added resources that support the needs of the BA community who seek to improve the practice of business analysis, be it from the perspective of the individual BA practitioner to that of the organization as a whole. Within his purview is also the endorsed education program and certification. Hi, Jazz, and welcome aboard.
Hi, Deb. Thank you.
The goal today is to answer as many of your questions as we can. And we do want to thank all of you who have provided questions prior to this webinar, and we will be covering those questions during the session. But if you have questions as we're going through, we truly do encourage you to put them forward, and simply do this by typing your question into the question box. And if we run out of time, we will follow up directly with an answer to your question. Okay, let's get started. So when we think about the questions that are coming from the community, we really want to start about setting the context for the new strategic alliances. And that is a question that has come across, and it is to be directed to Alain. Alain, can you tell us a little bit about the direction with strategic alliances and why that kind of direction was decided, and why is it the approach for today?
Yes, hello everyone. In November 2014, IIBA launched a new strategic plan and a global engagement framework to guide the development and implementation of IIBA's key strategic initiatives for the future. The strategy supports the natural evolution of the organization with an added focus in delivering more support and value to the members and the broader business community. As you know, our core purpose is to unite a community of professionals to create better business outcomes. And IIBA is committed to forge value-add collaboration with other organizations involved in the business analysis ecosystem in order to create a greater context and engagement and connectivity with BA professionals, chapters, partners, and the business community. Forming strategic alliance is one way to do this. And since August 2015, we have formed 5 new strategic alliances. The goal is to establish a richer context for value creation, provide access to new resources and information, and to collaborate with other organizations that share a similar vision and to advance the practice and discipline of business analysis. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Alan. And just a reminder, please do put forward your questions. Simply type them into the question box. But as we wait to see more questions from the community, Alan, I do have another question for you, if I may. And really thinking about, there are a lot of professional associations and organizations within the business analysis ecosystem. How does IIBA choose which organization to form such an alliance, and why? Is there set criteria?
Yes, well, let me first provide a little context about how this is done. I would say that this is an evolving model that will continue to be refined and enhanced as we move along, and eventually establish a more structured or strategic engagement program. We have, however, set some guiding principles and business rules in place right from the start. The establishment of strategic alliances between IIBA and other organizations is guided by key principles and on the foundation of social responsibility. A desire for genuine collaboration and value creation between the two organizations for the benefit of IIBA membership, the broader BA community, and business community. Create value that is focused on engagement and connectivity that provide a richer and broader and more diversified context to our communities, and the ability to leverage a network of organizations and stakeholders both at the local chapter level and on a global scale. Our guiding principles also support broader engagement and interconnectivity with all stakeholders of the business analysis ecosystem. The industry, both for-profit and not-for-profit, governments, professional associations, research organizations, conference providers, training organizations, academia, etc. And finally, it supports IIBA global presence and leadership in business analysis and its commitment to create and deliver more value to the membership and the broader BA and business community.
Thank you, Alan. And you know, it's interesting. I think that the community has honed in on the organizations for-profit. Can you tell us about the approach to working with a for-profit company? Specifically, are we allowing exclusive offerings? What does that look like?
Well, as I spoke earlier, our desire to form strategic alliances is based on the guiding principles that I just mentioned, regardless if they are for-profit or not. But beyond the guiding principles, we've also established critical business rules that are clearly articulated and discussed at the beginning of any potential engagement. The strategic alliances are not exclusive, and every element contained in any MOU signed for any strategic alliance is open to any organization wishing to explore a potential strategic collaboration with IIBA. It is not preferential. Establishing a strategic alliance with an organization does not provide them with a preferential status in regards to any product or services IIBA currently provide. It is not a means to promote an organization's product and services. The focus is on collaboration and value creation and engagement with the VA community. It is not a platform for IIBA to sell or advertise an organization's product and services. The MOUs signed between IIBA and other organizations are completely separate from any other agreements IIBA have, any programs or sponsorship programs, AP, etc. And there are no exchange of funds between the two organizations. Any expenses related to the work related to the strategic alliances is covered independently by each organization.
Thank you, Alan. Speaking of IIBA programs, we do have a question from an endorsed education provider. What about the potential impact to other EEPs? Do you see any impact? Can you comment on that?
We are very grateful to our global partners for their commitment to the EP program, and we are going to be looking at ways to enhance the value it provides. I had the opportunity in the last 2 weeks, along with some of my colleagues, to meet and discuss the impact of the announcement to the EAP community and to explain ourselves. In the following weeks, our team will meet and further discuss how we can enhance the program and support the needs of our EAP partners. We will be engaging the EAP community through the discussions, open dialogues, to better understand those needs, to listen, explore opportunities that can leverage learnings from our strategic alliance initiatives.
Thank you, Elaine. Just a quick reminder to all our attendees at the webinar, please do place your questions within the question box, and we will get to them as soon as we can as we go through the session. I do have another question, Elaine, and sorry to keep posing them to you, but Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, it seems to be kind of a formal process to have an alliance with an organization. Can't you just informally work together with an organization without an MOU?
Well, there's small collaboration that are minimal that probably do not require MOUs. They could be signed as a small agreements. In general, the MOUs are there for several reasons. It provides a means to have the collaboration between the two organizations more formalized, so they can each get internal resources working, and act as a tool to show mutual commitment to move forward with the engagement. It's also a document that protects IIBA organization from a legal point of view in regards to confidentiality, data protection, IP protection, clauses that are standards in agreements between organizations. The MOU describes the key elements of the collaboration at the intent level, which means that they're not written in a prescriptive way and provides room to explore ways to how those opportunities will be created, delivered, and providing the best value possible. And as long as they are in alignment with guiding principles and business rules. The MOU act as the main document for internal review and approval. They are signed, and every MOU is reviewed with our legal counsel. So that's why we put MOUs in place.
Thank you very much, Elaine. I appreciate your time in explaining that. Now, let's talk about value. IIBA is committed to providing value to the BA community. And when we look at these strategic alliances, Elaine and Kathleen, can you speak to what value this represents for the BA community, specifically your particular portfolio? Elaine, can you start, please?
Sure. During the exploration phase, the discussion, and before an MOU is signed, both organizations find time to discuss their vision, strategic direction, and how they can collaborate to create those value-add opportunities, either locally at a chapter level or through our corporate community, or with the collaboration of others in the ecosystem, government, academia, business community. For our chapters, this means enabling greater connectivity and broader networking with other organizations in the ecosystem, how they can access new resources, presentation, or events, or ability to leverage this network of alliances for their members' outreach campaigns. It's also to advance the business analysis profession, practice, and disciplines, and we do that with them through joint research surveys, development of white papers or publications, alignment of certification programs is a good example, or other models or standards we have. It also provides a way to leverage those organizations and provide special offers to our community that would help them with their careers or the professions.
Thank you, Elaine. So Kathleen, I just want to add to the value aspect of it when we think about your chapters, or our chapters. There's been references made to how chapters will be involved in the implementation of these alliances. Can you elaborate on what that means for chapters, or what that involvement looks like?
Sure. Thanks, Deb. Well, as Elaine has mentioned, these strategic alliances will provide a wide array of benefits to the broader community. And more specifically, for chapters, they'll be able to provide more support and connections to, both BA professionals looking to advance their careers, and also a great opportunity to recruit additional chapter members. And as we continue to grow our network of strategic alliances, I think chapters will have access to those organizations' calendars of events, which will again show that added value.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kathleen. Jazz, is there anything that you would like to add from your portfolio?
Yes, I would, Deb. I have two comments that I'd like to make with reference to value that's delivered through these strategic alliance agreements. I think we have to remember that as a BA professional, I don't practice my craft in a vacuum. So in order for me to be successful, I need to really integrate the work I do with the work done by many other professionals. And those professionals could represent other roles, other disciplines, other specialties. So, for example, business architecture, business process management, business rules experts, and so on. So the more I know about these other disciplines, the more effective I can be in my work. And collectively, we can work together to be much more effective in delivering better business outcomes. So my first comment is that as a BA professional, I can see that strategic alliances are going to allow me to be much more successful. There's also many additional benefits for the BA professional, and one that I'll mention from a purely selfish perspective is opportunity. You know, as a result of strategic alliances, I'm now exposed to complementary professions, roles, or specialties in ways that I was never exposed to before. And what I see in front of me is opportunity. Opportunity in terms of areas that I may want to specialize in or areas that I want to develop in. So my second comment is that at the end of the day, we've expanded opportunities for our global BA community. And I believe that's a good thing for all of us.
Thank you very much, Jazz, and Kathleen and Alain. Kathleen, another question has come in that is for you. Are chapters getting questions from their local members or their constituents about these strategic alliances? And if so, what are you saying to the chapters?
Thanks, Deb. Well, obviously, this is a new and very exciting place for IIBA and our community, and we are getting questions from the global community. And, you know, it's one of the reasons that we've arranged to have this webinar today. We want to hear directly from the community and be able to answer all of those questions in an open forum. And we know that there will continue to be questions as we move forward, and especially as we begin to get into the more executional side of these collaborations. And working with the chapters to answer these questions is going to be key for us. So we're looking forward to that collaborative approach.
Oh, thank you, Kathleen. And I just have a question that has come in about the last question we talked about, the value to the community. Can someone speak to when these new areas of value will be available to the community? May I direct this to you, Alain?
Yeah, well, let me maybe speak to how those strategic alliances are formed. Because it's an evolving model, we have not done a active outreach campaign. So far, the alliances have been established by some other organization directly reaching out to us, or while some were based on historical relationship that we have never formalized in the past. We have the same due diligence across our discussion this fall. We have a set of criteria that guide us to determine if it's the right fit. We look at strategic and cultural fit, organizational vision, future direction, and values, and the alignment of their business to business analysis as a profession, practice, and discipline. The exploratory phase we go through is a series of calls and discussion, and at every point we assess if the value that will be driven through this alliance is still valid. So eventually, when both organizations agreed on the way to proceed and key areas of collaboration have been defined, and the commitment is set, then we go in the next phase of establishing the MOU.
Thank you. You describe quite a robust, healthy process to get you to the MOU phase. And so far, you've created 5 alliances in that way. Can you speak a little bit in terms of the time and efforts that go into creating that?
Yeah, there's definitely a time commitment to these. It obviously doesn't take overnight. There's, as I said, a series of introduction, exploratory discussion, and then the MOUs itself, and then we have to establish communication change management plans alignment of internal resources, and then take the sort of intent level opportunities that are described in MOUs into a more detailed work plan, which is set into deliverables and timelines, and we prioritize those opportunities and then set the work in motion. So it's, it takes, I would say, a good 6 months, 9 months to see the results of the work that's beyond the first time we talk to actually see the deliverables out, simply because often we work with organizations who have volunteers, and we also need the volunteers. So aligning all the resources for the work takes some time to organize. So, but I can tell you that beyond each of these MOUs right now, there's a series of very interesting opportunities that are in development.
Oh, excellent. So we are at the beginning of 2016. So what can we expect from new alliances to be communicated this year? Can you speak a little bit about that and the opportunities that you see?
It's an ongoing process, the discussions. So there's a series of other organizations that are at different stages of discussions right now. We anticipate to have announcements pretty recently about some of the organizations we have engaged with. There'll be others throughout 2016 as well.
Okay, great. Great. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, Jazz, if I may. 2016, we heard at BBC in November about the new certification framework. And we know that in 2016, it is one of the key priorities for IIBA. The recent announcements regarding the strategic alliance, they've indicated there's the potential to align to certification programs, other certification programs. Can you discuss what this means? And also, when will you be announcing more information about the levels and alignment to certification?
Okay, and Deb, thank you for that question. You know, certification is definitely a key priority for IIBA because it's important to our global community, and quite frankly, it's important to our profession. So thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about it. Now, in terms of a strategic alliance, those will differ from one agreement to the next. So what I'm about to say doesn't refer to every strategic alliance. But obviously, in some cases, it makes sense to look for alignment between certification programs. And I think the best way to think of that is really as recognition of each other's certification programs. So from a practical perspective, let's talk about what that involves. And I'll give you a very specific example of the work that we're doing today. As you know, we have announced a 4-level certification framework. So let me focus in on level 1 as an example. Now, level 1 is described as the entry level in the BA profession. And what we've done so far is we've drafted learning objectives that need to be met at level 1. We're now going through the process of validating those level 1 learning objectives with our global community. What we can then do is take a look at a certification program from a complementary professional association and assess it in terms of how well it aligns with our level 1 learning objectives. And if there is good alignment, then we could announce our certification programs are aligned at that level, in this case at level 1. And of course, bear in mind that there would be additional criteria for program alignment above and beyond aligning with level 1 learning objectives. But you know, what that really does for us is that it removes confusion within the BA global community. As a BA professional, I no longer have to worry about whether a certification program from one professional association is better than the certification from another. If they recognize each other's certification programs, then I can take the one I prefer, knowing that it's going to be recognized by the other. And then I can choose my future development based on whichever professional association best meets my future needs. And Deb, you also asked me about timing of announcements.
I did.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. But I do want to answer the question, so I'm not going to sidestep it. So, of course, we have to complete the work, and I was talking specifically about level 1, so we'll stay with that example. We need to complete that work before we can make any kind of a formal announcement. So where we are today, we're dotting the I's, we're crossing the T's. We want to make sure we've completed our due diligence so that at the end of the day, we can categorically state that we have alignment. The rollout of the version 3 competency-based exams will be Q3. However, you're not going to have to wait until Q3 to hear about the potential alignment with specific strategic partners. So for example, with level 1, we will make those announcements regarding program alignment as soon as that work is completed. The stage that we're at with level 1, we're validating those learning objectives with a team of volunteers that represent our global BA community. And specifically on level 1, I'd say within the next 6 to 8 weeks, we will be in a position to make an announcement. So I hope that answers the question, Deb.
I believe it does, and I think from what I see here that that there's a lot of people that are very interested in hearing more about certification, and thank you for that response to that question, Jazz. So I want to remind people everything about what's going on within this webinar session, but if you have any specific questions, please do feel free to post them within the box. I do have a question for you, Alan, and this has to do with specifically about developing that strategic alliance in terms of the kind of organizations that you do look for in working out an MOU or having that kind of alliance. Does an organization have to be global? Are you only looking at large organizations for MOUs, or what does it look like?
Yeah, no, organizations don't have to be global. Size is not a criteria. What's really important is the desire for genuine collaboration and commitment to the community. We obviously right now there's some organizations that are bigger than others, but that would not be something that would be a factor. There are some organizations may have a presence on a international market, more on a regional region of the market. We're certainly going to look at this as well, but not the size of the organization.
Okay.
Obviously, their ability to commit to work with us is important, and have the resources behind that. But that's what I would go for. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Alan, I'm going to keep you on the hot seat if I may. If you can speak to how a strategic alliance is different from the endorsed education program. So how is the program of strategic alliances different from endorsed education program?
Yeah, I'm not going to go through the details of the major difference. The IIBA program is there for endorsement of courses that the IIBA provides, and there's a cost and some compliance associated with that. The strategic alliance are really based, as I said, on the foundations of social responsibility, engagement, connectivity, and really enable us to not only connect one-on-one with one organization. As we create those alliances with others, we're going to look at the synergies that those others can also create as part of the ecosystem. And as I said, the strategic alliances, there are no cost exchange between the two organizations.
Thank you. Now, I do have one follow-up question to that, Alan. And the question is, will IIBA create other alliances with an EP type of organization?
We're always going to look at ways to improve our strategic engagement and see if we can leverage the lessons from our recent strategic alliances to apply to other training organizations I'd stay away to just say with another EEP. Our strategic alliance was with a training organization who also participate in the EEP program. So the goal would not be to form a strategic alliance with an EEP, but with an organization who has the same vision and desire to collaborate and engage with the organization and create the value. So.
Thank you for the clarification, Alain. Truly appreciated. Okay, I don't see any more questions coming through the question box, so I'll give people a couple more minutes to formulate their questions. But as a way of moving towards ending the webinar, can Alain, Kathleen, and Jazz, can we just have some closing remarks or last words? May I start with you, Jazz? Anything that you'd like to end with?
Sure. I think the the one message that I do want to convey this morning is that, you know, there's a lot of moving pieces to the certification initiative, and you know, we have a talented team in place. We are reaching out to our global community, working together. We're on track, and we will deliver as per timelines that are being communicated. Having said that, the other desire that we have is we want to try and release important information to our community as soon as it's available. So we're not, you know, necessarily waiting for this big bang implementation at the end. As an example, once the level 1 learning objectives have been validated and finalized, we're happy to provide that information to our EPs. And what that does is give lots of lead time in terms of thinking about potential opportunities for course offerings at level 1 for our community. So I just wanted to emphasize that that we are very much interested and will be releasing information as it's available. Thanks, Deb.
Well, thank you, Jazz. I do have another question, and it's about our IIBA members, volunteers. Alain, do you see a role with our volunteers assisting with executing on the MOUs?
Actually, yes, there will be a role. So Jazz just spoke about the alignment of certification. So there are certainly work on the way with doing that, and volunteers are engaged in reviewing the information there. Certainly there will be some activities that eventually will reach out to our community asking their input and feedback and participation for some of the work. Yes, as we always do with many of our initiatives.
Thank you. Now, Kathleen, is there anything else that you would like to say in terms of closing the webinar with regard to chapters, constituents, and members?
Thanks, Deb. As I indicated earlier, I think this is a very exciting opportunity for our chapter community, and you know, I look forward to working with Alain and our strategic alliances to look at some of those engagement opportunities and how we can really turn that into greater value, not only for our chapters, but for our members at large. So looking forward to that continued collaborative approach as we continue to deliver greater value in 2016.
Thank you, Kathleen. So, Alain, I'm going to turn it over to you to conclude the webinar. The questions have stopped coming through the question box for now. So is there anything that you would like to say at this point?
Well, I would like to thank everyone who participated in the webinar, and thank you, Deb, for a great job hosting this session. We look forward to continuing to enhance our strategic alliance framework. Your feedback and input is important, and what's really important with those strategic alliances is the value it creates for our community, and we will always strive to form those collaborations with that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Alain. Thank you. Well, I'd like to echo Alain's sentiment and thank everyone. Oh, I think we do have one more question. If we can just give a second for it to come through. I don't have it in my question box. All right. Nope, there aren't any. And I want to thank everyone very much for providing all of the questions that were provided. Oh, here we go. One did come through. And this is directed to you, Jazz. When you're talking about alignments of certification, working with EEPs, will there also be the ability to offer other organizations certifications?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, I think our responsibility is to look at any opportunities that we can provide for our global community. So, if that opportunity arises, I think we will look at it. Other than that, I don't really have a definitive response. And does that sound like I'm sidestepping it?
No, but I think it's more in terms of as you're working through that whole process that that these answers will come up at that point.
Yes, exactly.
There's a second part for your consideration. Can an EEP be fast-tracked to be authorized to offer programs that help people pass tests and get other credentials? So thinking about the first question in terms of offering other certifications by other organizations, can the EEPs be recognized for being able to get people to take their tests and get those credentials?
I think, again, that's something that we can look at. One of the pieces of work that's going to be happening is, and I think Alan alluded to this, we are going to be taking a look at our EEP program and looking at what enhancements we can make to that program. As part of that work, we have already had a call for volunteers go out to the EEP community. This went out early December timeframe. And for those of you that saw that call for volunteers, you would have noticed that in that announcement, we were talking about establishing a EEP focus group. And really, that is the voice of the EEP community that's going to help us determine what our future EEP program will look like. And so this is, this is exactly the kind of question that can be explored by that group, and we'll use their their suggestions, their ideas to guide the development of the future program. So I think that, as I said before, I think we'll explore any opportunity, and if there's value provided to our community, then I think we will, we'll definitely consider and look at it.
Thank you. And as you're talking, we are getting more questions coming in, which is great. And Alan, this one is actually tied to you. It's about the latest strategic alliance that has been announced. Can you discuss how this specific alliance will benefit the community?
Yes, it will benefit the community as explained before, that we're going to work with this organization to determine ways to engage with different communities that are also part of this organization's communities. There's a lot of discussions about providing chapters with opportunities to expand their network and outreach to increase their membership. We're also thinking about potentially doing surveys and white papers together on subject that our community is asking for. So these are the type of things that we're exploring.
Oh, excellent. And they will be communicated to everyone once they're formalized?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, excellent. All right, I think that we are finished in terms of questions at this point, but please know that this is not the end of asking those questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact info@iiba.org and place your questions there, and we will have an answer for you within 48 hours so that you have the answers that you need in order to make decisions that you need as well. And I just really want to thank everyone for all of the questions that you've posed prior to the webinar and after the webinar. And you know what? This is interesting. We have one more question, someone wanting to get in right towards the end, and apologizes if it has already been answered and because they have joined late for the call. But will the owners of the relationships with individual strategic partners be made available to the IIBA membership so that questions regarding the partnership can be directed to the right person?
Well, can I take this?
Thank you.
All right. So as part of my mandate, I'm responsible for the formation of strategic alliances. As such, I steward those relationships for the lifetime of our alliance. So any questions can be directly to me, and I will make sure that it's I engage whoever in the IIBA to provide the right context and response.
Okay, thank you. And we do have one. This one is about ASPE. Can you, Alain, explain why ASPE was signed up as a MOU and what other EEPs can look forward to it?
Well, ASPE reached out to us and we had discussion, and they were looking to, the same context I explained earlier, the context of social responsibility and give back to the community. I want to create value to the broader community and seek opportunities to collaborate with us to do that, to engage and to provide, again, new resource access to new network to our community. So we looked at it and we thought, yeah, it's a good way to do that, and let's explore that together. And that's how we're going to take it. We're going to move with that. The opportunity is open, as I said, to all organizations, and we look at every single potential engagement on a one-on-one basis, following the guiding principles, the criteria, and the business rules we've established.
Okay. Your answers are propelling other questions, Alain. What can a strategic alliance with EEPs help beyond what EEPs are already doing?
I cannot speak to all the EEPs. There's 285, I think. First, the strategic alliance is with a training organization. So let's make sure that we separate the two things. Certainly, there are amazing training organizations who belong to the EEP program, who do great work for their community and provide value beyond what others would do. And I invite them to have a discussion with me and see where we can explore things together.
Excellent. So where can IIBA members go to find information about deliverables resulting from the strategic alliances? Will there be something, will there be meeting events, webinars, or anything to talk about those things?
Yes, we're creating right now a dashboard defining a little bit more what each of those deliverables will be and the value that will be driven and provided to our community. So you can count on regular updates from our team on a monthly basis about the value that's driven by not only the strategic alliances but also key strategic initiatives that IIBA is currently putting in place.
Okay, thank you. And this goes right into another follow-up question. So to date, we have 5 strategic alliances with MOUs. Is there a place where members can actually look and see a listing of strategic alliances, especially since 2016? There's probably going to be more.
Well, yeah, there's a website. On our website, there's a landing page explaining each of the current strategic alliances. I do not publish right now the ones in the discussions simply because we have to still continue to define the opportunities and the establishing the MOU, etc. So, but as soon as we have that in place, we communicate.
Okay, thank you. Now, Alain, you touched on this earlier, but for the benefit of some people that have come later to the webinar, can you talk about how IIBA is targeting and bringing actual EEPs to the table through MOUs and other kind of engagement efforts?
No, we're not targeting specific EEPs to the Strategic Alliance program. As I mentioned, the Strategic Alliance is a different initiative than the EEP. ASPE is a training organization that reached out to us, and we explored together the opportunity to create a strategic alliance based on that, the guiding principles that I explained earlier during the session. So it's not that we did an outreach to a specific EEP. We didn't do that. There was a discussion that took place following ASPE contacting us.
Thank you so much for the clarification on that, Alain. Can you list out a few areas, and perhaps Jazz can look to this as well, where you are looking for strategic alliances similar to the Certification Level 1 partnership?
I'm not sure if I understand clearly the question, Deb. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So we talked about, and Jazz spent some time talking about the strategic alliance and the ability to work with Certification Level 1 and partnering with strategic partners to build that out. Are there other areas that you're looking to do something similar with strategic alliances, so not in the certification space, but another area?
Yeah, I mean, normally it would be done with professional associations who provide similar services and value to their own community, either be in architecture, business process management, or fields like this. We would look at opportunities to align anything that would benefit the community. You can imagine there's hundreds of different types of professional association, all developing standards, some developing competency models, certification programs, and there's many overlap in many of those organizations. Trying to collaborate with them to minimize those overlap and provide greater clarity to the community, and particularly the business community, is really important to us as well. So that's the type of things we would look at.
Okay, so we have someone that offered up another area, wondered if that was in consideration as well. Best practices to evaluate business analysis performance. Is that an area for strategic alliance as well, being able to work through that?
Well, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Is this an organization?
It's more of a topic area. So we talked about certification and being able to look at partnerships with certification, and you provided a whole other areas that we could see partnerships in as a topic.
Yeah. Now the context of advancing the practice is also very important. There's a way for us to work with other organizations that can enable us to advance the principles, the techniques, the standards of business analysis and relations to other practices, either through the development of white paper, focus groups, interviews, surveys, etc. Absolutely, we will be looking at this and provide it back to our community once the work is completed.
Deb, can I just chime in for a second?
Of course.
Thank you. This is Jazz. I think there's three words that keep being repeated, and I think that we need to keep these in mind. The first word is clarity. Organizations are confused. They're confused by the plethora of roles that they have and who does what. So what does a BA professional do versus a business architect versus a business rules expert, and so on. And so I think if we can bring greater clarity for organizations, that's a big win. So there's opportunities there in terms of strategic alliances. The second key word is value. So through a strategic alliance, what value are we bringing to our community? That's got to be a big driver of what makes sense and what doesn't. And then the third word is opportunity. And so if we think about strategic alliances from the perspective of what opportunities do they provide to our community? I think that's a good way of thinking about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So keep those three words in mind: clarity, value, and opportunity.
That's an excellent way to end the webinar. Our questions have officially been exhausted, though I do want to say one thing. There was a question about where someone could go to see a listing of the current MOUs. You can go to our website, http://iiba.org MOUS, and you'll be able to look at more information about strategic alliances. So once again, thank you very much for all of your questions, especially the last-minute questions that came through. It kept us hopping. Really appreciate that. But as you go away, if there's anything else that you think about, please do not hesitate. Please raise these questions, and again, send them directly to info@iiba.org, and we will provide answers to you, to your questions. And I want to thank so much Alan, Jazz, and Kathleen for being the panelists for this particular webinar and providing some great insight into what the strategic alliances are all about and what they can do for the community. So I'm going to close off the webinar unless anyone, Alan, Kathleen, Jazz, has anything else to say before we go?
No, thank you again, Deb. Really appreciate being here today.
Yes, thank you, Deb.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, appreciate having a platform to speak, and hopefully looking forward to the next one.
Excellent. And thank you to everyone that has participated in the webinar today. And I think we can close it off. So have a good day. And again, any questions, please forward them to info@iiba.org. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.